We are going to talk about building your $1 million network, emphasis on your. This is a strategy that works for everyone from college students to billionaires. You're probably somewhere in between. And so we will make it work for you. The tagline for my book is "You are one connection away from massive success in your life and business." We will talk about the power of one in a few slides. It really only takes one connection to unlock all of this. So I want you guys to have confidence in that. Yes, you can go as crazy as I go with the system and book a ton of meetings and do a lot of work. You can also just do it with one person and it will still work. Who am I? I don't like listening to people if I don't understand who they are and where they're coming from, because that gives us great background context. So I always like to include this slide. I don't like talking about myself because, again, I want to empower you, but this slide's important. So yes, I did write the Connection Expansion book, which outlines this whole system. All of the templates, everything's in there. There's also a YouTube video online. There's actually two of them. One that goes through the whole system start to finish, one that goes through the Connection Expansion exercise, which we'll go through here as well. So if you want to go deep, that's all in there. I do run a connection group, real people, real connections. We keep it simple. It's not work. It's not meant to be. It's supposed to be about connections. I've owned a marketing agency, a co-working space, a manufacturing company, worked in the HR industry, had a cat cafe. Yes, we can talk about that if you guys would like. It's usually a fun topic. And I've strategically worked with 600 businesses on growth, development, systematizing their business. And I also am the director of partnerships with $1 Million authors. So if you're thinking of writing a book, happy to have that conversation as well. So that's me. Really, the takeaway there is I've done a whole lot of stuff. I love business and I'm super passionate about it. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. I gave you this warning. It's here too. So don't blame me if I overwhelm you. I'm going to go through a lot of content, right? So this is your warning about that. Chris does have these slides as a PDF. He can share with you as well so that you guys can digest those on your own time. So the referral dilemma, I like to start here. The true statement is when I'm in a room of people is everybody wants referrals, right? They're best. They're already aligned with you. You're already edified. There's a much higher close rate. You're positioned to solve someone's problem. The issue with referrals is they're usually not consistent or predictable. That's what we're going to talk about today. How do we solve that and create a duplicatable, scalable machine? Some other challenges, and this statistic was interesting when I was writing my book. The best businesses, the best at getting referrals, only get 5% of their customer base to refer them. I don't know about any of you, but 5% to me is failure. And so if that's the best, we're probably setting ourselves up to fail. And I don't want that for you, and I don't want that for myself. Most referral systems are client-focused. That's also another issue because you're targeting such a small pool of your available network and hoping that they'll produce results for you. It's also about the inconsistency, right? We talked about that. Most of the time when I ask about referrals, there's usually some generic answer. Well, I get like 1 to 2 a month, or they're great when they come in, but there's no like, hey, I know in a given month, I'm going to get 30, 40, 50 inbound connections. That's going to mature into this many more connections, which turns into this many referrals, which turns into this much revenue. I can give you all those stats and I can give them to you for the last decade. That's what I want. I want that predictability for you. And then we also have to shift our ask. And so the first quote, and this is the one quote that I tell everyone to put on your monitor or put somewhere else, is everybody wants to buy, nobody wants to be sold. Everybody wants to buy, nobody wants to be sold. Yet in the referral world, we are asking people to position us to sell to somebody. And so we're already setting the system up to fail just on how we're asking. And so I want to, again, flip that on its head as well. And so you're going to see and hopefully hear a lot of new ideas, new thoughts, and new ways to approach this. That's the referral dilemma, and that's what we're trying to solve. So what if? I like to give some what ifs because, again, let's ground what's possible. These are real things from myself, people I've worked with, clients, and partners. What if you never had to market for an open position at your company? What if every time you open a position up, it was already full with someone who is amazing? What if you could launch a business for 50% of what it should cost? Yes, we can talk about the Cat Cafe. It's very real, and the network empowered us to do that. You could save money and have a better experience while traveling. I hear some people in other countries, right? So what if you could do that, get better hotels, better invites, the mother-in-law quarters of people in other countries? What if you were invited to exclusive invite-only opportunities? What if you never had to search for a service provider again? Anything you need is already in your network or it's one connection away. What if you could book 50 meetings per month with new contacts with zero cold calling? That's the other part of this system, guys. This is not a cold outreach system. This is a use your network or go network, and we're going to build our network that way. You could secure a sponsorship for an event where you're the only sponsor. 6 of those booked already this year, so we can talk about that. What if you could build $1 million pipeline in 120 days with no cold calling? I don't know about you, but that sounds exciting. Or what if you could be the top producer in your company, branch, region, or industry? All of these are real results from the system. So hopefully there's something in there that inspires you, something you can latch on to. So let's talk about the power of one. I want you to just visualize this. This is not hard. I want you to re-engage with one contact. That should be something that all of you can go, yeah, okay, fine. I can have a meeting with one person in my network I haven't talked to in a while. You're going to schedule a connection meeting. We'll talk about what that is in a little bit. And I want you to meet with the person, add value, go through the process again. We'll get there. And from that, you need to make 3 connections to them. If you make 3 connections, what you unlock is the permission to follow up with all 4 people. The first person you met with, the 3 people you're introducing them to. What will happen is when you have that permission to follow up, which is 3 weeks later, checking in, hey, how did that introduction go? To all 4 of those parties, they're going to reply and they're going to edify that connection the majority of the time, right? It was great. Here's why. What will happen is one of those people will typically raise their hand to reconnect, or they will make connections for you. This then gives you one more person to meet, add value with, go through the process and make 3 connections with, which what then gives you permission to follow up with those 4 people, right? The one you already did plus 3 more. This is one contact, one meeting. If we do this with 10 people, it turns into 30 and 40 and 100. This system builds on itself. And so that's the goal of the system is 3, 4, 5 months down the road, this machine will outpace the majority of sales systems, marketing platforms you're trying to put into place. Hopefully that makes sense for you guys. Here's an example tying it to real revenue. This is a client that closed 2 weeks ago for a book contract. So a $30,000 paying client came from David. My relationship with David has resulted in 10 connections. He's a paying client, and I was a podcast guest on his podcast. David was connected to me by Ben. Ben also is a podcast host, and I was on his podcast, and Ben has made 5 connections for me. Ben was connected by Aaron, who's given me 5 connections, 2 of which were to amazing events that we're now partnered with and doing sponsorships with, and we're exploring an integrated offer. Ben was connected to me by Aaron. Aaron was connected to me by Tom. Tom was connected to me by Jeff. You can see how it works. The one I want you to pay attention to, though, is when I met with Tom, it was a very awkward meeting. In fact, I would go almost as far to say I didn't see a ton of value in it. It was not a good meeting. However, Tom unlocked the chain of connections that led to the $30,000 client, the 2 events, the podcasts, and the more than 20 connections. You have to see the value in every relationship. We'll get to the core tenets, but that is one of them. And so this shows the chain, and what's possible is we're nurturing contacts long-term, not chasing the short-term client close. So what the heck is this system that we've been talking about, right? Like, I think I've teased it enough. So the system is all of these things and more. Again, we're going to highlight them all quick. We'll hit them all. There's tons of resources to go deeper. So it's built on core principles. It has the connection expansion exercise, which if you take anything out of today, that will be the one thing that will dramatically change how you're building your network. We're going to talk about how to make new connections, the language, how to conduct meetings, the language for the system, tips for managing contacts, and a quick action so you can tap into your current network. Hint, it goes back to the power of one that we already talked about. So that's the system and everything and anything in between. Again, all of your questions are fair at the end and we'll address those. So core principles, let's start there. Any good system should have a foundation it's built on. This is the foundation for the system. First, always add value. You have to be a giver for the system to work. You cannot be someone who's taking. You have to be focused on adding value. Now, when I say adding value, often people get stuck on providing their service as the value you're adding. That is not what I mean, and that will not work. What adding value means is making connections, providing resources, and solving problems. If you can do those things, the system works. Next, control what you can control. In business development, sales, and marketing, we often benchmark our success on things that are actually outside of our control. Why would you set yourself up to fail? So I want to empower you to control the things you can control. You're going to see highlights and moments of that as we go through the system. There's value in every relationship. If you don't believe that, don't even try the system. So you have to believe that every single person you meet, whether it's the barber, the hairdresser, the person on the flight, the person in the coffee shop line, or the crazy introduction that you're not sure about, has value. That is very, very critical to you remaining curious and unlocking the power of the system. Never make assumptions about a connection. Those two go hand in hand. Again, anyone we meet, we can't make assumptions because that's where we back ourselves into a corner and we minimize the potential value of that relationship. And the last one, super critical. You have to train by doing. If we're going to build a system where our expectations from the system are to receive inbound connections or referrals, then you need to train your network by doing what you want. Let's just go back. Let's act like I didn't just say that. Okay. Train by doing. Please hear me, right? You have to do in your network what you want your network to do. Yet so often we put the control out of us into other people and hope, which is never a strategy, that they will make connections and introductions for us. Don't do that. We have to train by doing. So train by doing. I do see all the stuff in the chat. I'm not even going to open it up until we get through this. So just know that I'll check out what's there. Hopefully it's you not saying that I have something stuck between my teeth.
It's people writing down your quotes because they're all so good.
Okay, perfect. Great. I would say I didn't open up just so I didn't get distracted because I always want to go to the Q&A faster.
Your next book is in the chat right now.
Perfect. Yes, let's do it. There's got to be more. All right. So this is the one part I told you, if you're going to take anything away, this is the slide. The connection expansion exercise is really what shifts and unlocks the majority of this system. And what we're doing is we're shifting from the one-to-one, right? That's chasing that one referral to one client, to the one-to-many, which is typically the referral partner strategy, to the many-to-many, which is super sneaky. The many-to-many positions you to be an authority in rooms where your competition isn't playing. Let me say it again. It positions you to be an authority in rooms where your competition isn't playing. If we can get that result for you, you win, because you're in a room full of captive, qualified people that no one's competing. That's a huge result from the system. So this is your shifting the ask. When I go to you and I say, hey, Eric, who do you want to meet? And Eric answers, well, he's going to answer correctly because he's been through the system. But those of you who haven't are going to answer like this. Hey, Devin, I want to meet, and you're going to regurgitate your ideal client to me because that's what we're trained. We're trained to ask for ideal clients. Fantastic. But that goes back to the quote I shared. When you ask for an ideal client, what you're expecting from me is to go into my network, find qualified people, and position them to you to be sold. Now, if they raise their hand, yes, I'm going to get them to you as fast as I can so you can sell to them, right? Please. But that doesn't work when we're building a network strategically and we're trying to get away from the 5%, okay? So here's the quick exercise. Again, there's a whole video on this, so I'm going to go quick. We start with your ideal client, and I want you to think about who has access to your ideal client. The first bucket is vendors. So that is, where does your ideal client spend money? So if you identify my ideal client is a first-time parent, let's go real granular in like a B2C business. First-time parent. Okay, well, if they're a first-time parent, where are they spending money? Well, they're spending money at the nursery, the education centers, trainings, things around being a parent, right? Now, if it's the B2B world, what are the vendors? Well, the merchant processing company, the mastermind, the coaches, the consultants, the industry leaders, the website hosts, the marketing agencies, blah, 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 blah. If you are not sure, pull up your bank account. I promise you'll find vendors, right? It's an easy activity. The second is education. Where does your ideal client profile seek education? Now, if they're accountants, financial advisors, or in a trusted industry where there's continuing ed, that's easy because there's associations for it. If they're not, they're typically seeking education somewhere. A good note is if they're seeking education, they're much more likely to invest in whatever your offer is because they're willing to invest in themselves. Huge sneaky secret there that will get you to close more deals. Next, where do your ideal clients gather? If you can find them in groups, obviously, I think we understand the value there, but let's think about where they gather based on hobbies, interests, and other things, not just where our competition might be looking for them. Next, who influences them, or where do they seek influence? That's usually podcast hosts, people like Chris who host meetings, groups, right? The person on the stage at the event who is elevated that is speaking to them in a way where whatever they say, they take and they listen. Who do they trust? This is the intimate relationships. This is typically the relationship coach, the therapist, the financial advisor, the CPA. Attorneys sometimes fall in this bucket. Their inner circle, right? So if they've got like 5 close friends, it's typically their inner circle. Who do they trust? And last but not least, connectors. You need as many connectors in your network as possible. Hint, you met one today, and I'm happy for you to abuse me to solve problems for you because that's part of the system, right? So cheat code, I'm here. So is Chris, and he's a great connector too. And so is Eric, and so is he. And so, yes, we can all help, right? But you want connectors. So what I want you to do, and if you go look at the video, there's a spreadsheet for this. You can build your list out. You're going to start filling the buckets. You'll probably come up with 30, 40, 50 different things in all of these lists that have access to your clients. Next, I want you to go through that list and identify the places you can relate the most. Do not pick people you don't like. Do not pick industries you can't relate to. Pick things that are built on your history. If your background's engineering, pick people that are aligned with that. If you have a hobby interest of golf, right? Let's be friends, but also connect with those people. If you like traveling, if you like any of these things, look for some of the demographics in there and decide like, okay, I can relate to this person or this ideal client type or this event type I like, or whatever it is, make sure it's aligned with you. And then I want you to do it again, because this is where we unlock the power. So if we go through this exercise and we decide, hey, business CPAs are great vendors, influencers, and intimate relationships. They check a couple boxes and they have access to my ideal clients. So let's assume that. I would then go back through this whole exercise looking at the business CPA being my ideal client or ideal connection. And then I'd look at where do they spend money? Where do they seek education? Where do they go through all the process? And then I go back through and pick a couple of those that I'm aligned with. Because if I can find myself in a room full of my ideal referral partners and I'm the authority with no one competing, I just landed exponential network growth in one spot. I really need you to hear me on that. The first exercise will get you far. The second time you do it will exponentially grow your network. It also shifts the ask. So if we go back and you say, Devin, who do you want to connect with? Well, if my first ask was, I want to connect with people who want to build their network, which is typically high-performing business owners. That's great. That would be my ideal client ask. My ask now is, I want to connect with event hosts who inspire professionals to grow, either personally or professionally. I want to meet the host because the host is so much more valuable to me. They typically have a podcast. They typically have a mastermind, and we can collaborate in so many ways. And then I can get in front of 120 people at once. One of those connections, super valuable. Hopefully there's a nugget there for you guys. Next, making new connections. Let's talk about this as if you're going out and networking. First, set realistic expectations. Often when I ask people what's your goal in networking, they regurgitate like, I'm trying to meet X prospective clients, or I'm trying to like cherry pick the room. Don't do that. You're setting yourself up to fail. What you're there to do is meet people. That's the art of networking. Just meet people. Again, go back to the 2 of the core principles. Meet people, don't make assumptions. Now we need to control what we can control. You have to get their contact information because you have to follow up. They will not, right? The follow-up is the art where you're going to win. And so if that scares you, this process will probably scare you a tad. It's okay. We can support you through it. But if you're not going to follow up, you probably shouldn't be trying to build a network, right? The person you're talking to will not follow up with you unless they think they can sell to you. Again, we're going to flip all that because we're not going to sell to them. Have a set series of questions to ask. There's 4 questions I use. Again, there's content around that, so we won't go to them, but just know that there's 4 questions. If someone asks in the Q&A, happy to give those to you. And then make sure the following the event, you schedule time to follow up. I need you to time block so that we make sure we actually follow up with the contact information we gathered. That's the quick tips for networking. Go to an event, get their contact information. If you can accomplish that, you can start the system, okay? Now, how do we follow up? This is where I scare a lot of people off. I get it. It's okay. 24 hours later, you're going to send an email. The email is going to be exactly what's on the screen. Would you like me to read it for you? Let me read it for you. Hey, Chris, I hope you're doing well and that you're having a great day. It was great meeting you at the mastermind event yesterday. I enjoyed briefly learning about you and what you do. I would love to set up a time to learn more about you so that I can better make connections for you. Just a little pause so you guys can hear me. You can view my calendar and schedule a time that works for you at this link. Insert calendar link. I look forward to connecting with you. Do you want to know what my book rate is with that email? Yes, it's everybody. Why would you not book? Nothing in there is me selling you. Everything in there is me adding value to you. This is the shift. I don't want to sell. I don't need to sell. At some point, you will raise your hand and buy because I will add so much value and you will open up to me so quick because we'll have a deep relationship that you're going to refer ideal clients and raise your hand to purchase when the time's right. Now, That's the first email I send. I am trying to book a meeting. That's our goal and intent. I will follow up every 3 business days 5 times. Then I'll follow up every 7 days or once a week 4 times. And then I move you to our nurture cycle. Yes, there's a template for that. We'll give it to you as well. Hint, I just use email because that's my preference and that's how my team can support my growth and the amount of stuff we do. If you want, you can rotate between email, call on your 3 and 7 day follow-ups. If you leave a voicemail, always send an email. If you leave a voicemail, always send an email. That email will convert much, much higher because now you've guilt tripped them twice into them owing you something. This is my follow-up process. Yes, it's all automated. We use the same thing. Another tip here that's not on the screen, but a nugget for you is if you send the first email, reply to it as your second touch. The third touch is a new email. The fourth touch, you reply to the previous email. When you reply to the previous email, it's a double guilt trip again because now you're holding up and saying, hey, I emailed you and I emailed you. All right. At what point do you want me to not add value to you? Just a couple tips for you guys, but this is the language we use. This is how we book meetings. Again, the goal here is to control what we can control. We want to use the right language and the right cadence at the right time to book a meeting because that's our goal. Now, we booked the meeting, so what? If they're virtual, 30 minutes. If it's in person, 60, because you have to accommodate for buying coffee, finding a table, and all the crap that comes with in-person meetings. I prefer Zoom, even with people in my own market. The key things you need to get out of this meeting is you need to be able to edify, endorse, and make 3 connections to the person you're meeting. Edify, right? So you need to know enough about them to be able to talk highly about them and actually position them to be amazing. Endorse, you need to be able to say, hey, you're amazing, here's why. And then you need to be able to make 3 connections. Here's how the meeting flow should go. 80% of the meeting, you should be asking questions. They should be answering. Looks like I'm lagging a little, so sorry for that, but hopefully the audio is good. Okay. Here's the flow for that meeting. We get stuck here, so I want to make sure we talk about it. Current state, so you're looking for ideal client service offerings. Where are they at? What are they doing? You should start there because we need to know who we're talking to. Now, you need to go backwards. How do we get here, right? Tell me, how'd you end up in whatever industry doing whatever they do? That allows you to see their previous network, their previous interests, the things that they were involved with before, which start to show you where there's more connection opportunity and ways to align with your ask. Then we go to the future. Hey, Bob, what are you trying to accomplish? What's the goal? They're going to paint and start dreaming with you, which is part of an intimate relationship quickly in the first meeting. Then you're going to say, hey, what's in your way? I love that. First, affirm it, right? That's amazing. I love it. I support it. You're a rock star. Yes. Now what's in your way? And they're going to, if you did the meeting right, give you a list like this, and this are pissing me off. These are the things that are frustrating me. And then the last question you always ask is what type of connection would be most impactful for you? They're probably going to give you ideal clients because that's what they're trained to do, and or an ask to solve one of the problems they just outlined. Now, this is where people go, well, Devin, I can't make 3 connections after a meeting. Okay, great. They just told you your ideal client. You understand the connection exercise, which was a few slides up. As they tell me my ideal client, I am going through the exercise in my head going, okay, who do I know that has access to that ideal client they just said? What vendors? Where do they gather? Where do they educate? What influencers? Or I just connect them to Devin because Devin's a cheat code and he's a connector and he will help them solve a problem and I still look good and the system still works, right? That's why connectors are great. But I'm going through and what I'm going to start teaching.
Oh, he's going to start teaching something. We just don't know what it is. Good value so far, though. Like
An
this
expansion
system...
exercise for yourself.
Oh, hang on, Devin. You said I will start teaching, and then we lost you.
Oh, okay. Now we're back.
Yeah.
So I will teach the person I'm meeting with to shift their ask from the ideal client to being comfortable getting the strategic connections and introductions. And so that's the big shift because as they say, here's my ideal client, I'm going through the connection expansion exercise for them in my head so I can make connections. So the better you go through the exercise for yourself and understand it, the easier it is to make connections for other people following this meeting, which is a key to the meeting. Okay. All right. Your follow-up from the meeting. Again, we're just piling it in, guys. So follow-up from the meeting. You want to send your great to meet you email. That's a templated email. Hey, it was great meeting you. I enjoyed these things, blah, blah, blah. You also want to recap action items. You want to provide any resources that solve problems that they identified and then let them know, hey, following this email, there'll be some connection emails coming with you. I'm going to then send 3 connection emails. Connection emails are the best way to do it. I have people send them to me on Facebook Messenger, on LinkedIn, and text messages. It's really hard for both parties to track. And it assumes people are, especially on LinkedIn frequently. I have one right now. I'm having to chase down their email because they're not on LinkedIn. So email to email is the best I have found with the highest conversion rate. You want to make sure you edify and endorse. Those are two of the things I mentioned, right? So I want to be able to say, hey, you got to meet Chris. Here's why. I think you should meet him because he's the best. He's great. He's a rock star. Always use edification and endorsement language. And then make sure you have one sentence that clearly explains why you're connecting, because we want to make sure that they're not coming in to sell. So we want to say, I need you to meet you and you meet you because I think you're targeting the same client and there's got to be some synergy you two should explore, right? So now we're positioning the meeting to talk about content creation and partnership, right? So make sure you have that other one. And then 3 weeks later, assign a task to check in. Again, that's where we check in with those parties. Hey, Chris, how are those connections I sent to you? Hey, Joe, how was that connection to Chris? It gives me permission to follow up with my network, which keeps my network re-engaged and gives me permission to have conversations and move them into a connection meeting and just restart the process. Long-term nurturing. After we've done all of that, so we've done our 3-week check-in, or we've tried to book a meeting and they don't. Those are the two avenues that end up here. I check in with people every 6 weeks. You could pick whatever you like. Some people like to go hot, warm, cold, and do 30, 45, 60, or 90 days, depending on how much value they perceive in the relationship. That's fine. I just do 6 weeks for everyone because it's easier to track. And I send this email. I have people who have received this email more than 120 times. They will tell you about it. Some people on this call can tell you about receiving this email. And it works, by the way. The subject line's checking in. How are you doing? And this is the exact email template. You don't need to change it. You don't need to edit it. Please just use it. Every time I see someone try to change it, they tend to add language that makes it less effective. Eric can probably give you a testimonial about that, but I can just tell you that a lot of clients, it's a real thing. So I hope you're doing well and having a great day. Always break the ice with an intro. It's been a while since we last connected, so you're setting the stage that, hey, I'm checking in and it's been a while. Anything new and exciting in your world, any new challenge? Let me know if there's specific connections you're looking for. I look forward to hearing back from you. So if I'm not trying to book meetings because I'm busy or I'm traveling, that would be the email. If I want to fill my calendar back up and get this process going faster, I then will switch that to let's get some time on the calendar to catch up and explore how we might be able to add value to each other's worlds. And then I'll put here's a link to my calendar to grab a time. Because what will happen is 30% of those emails that you send will either reply or book a meeting. 30%. So every month, if you're sending 100, that's 30 people that you're going to re-engage with, right? If you're sending 200, it goes up. If you're doing 10, that's still 3 people that you're having new conversations with. Everybody else is still seeing your brand in an authentic way. It's not a newsletter and it's all about the other person, right? That's the goal. Always add value. So contact and task management. I like to just put this in here because if you don't have a system to manage this, hopefully you're starting to see that it's probably not going to be as successful as it could be. You could do this on an Excel sheet and still have success. I do have people doing that. I don't recommend that. You should have a CRM. High level is a great option. I know Chris has amazing snapshots and build outs in there for you guys to lean on, but it's great. You need to track contacts and tasks. Those are the two things that are critical. Every single contact in your CRM that's not cold should have a task assigned. Why would you have a contact in your CRM that you've earned and you're not doing something with them? That makes no sense. So you need to have something assigned. When you assign tasks, you need to make sure that you put them into buckets. So this is how I do all of my task labeling. It will help you sort through and follow up with your tasks later. And then if you book a meeting, make sure you assign a task the next day to do follow-up for meeting. Hold yourself accountable to the follow-up because that, again, is where you're going to set yourself apart from everyone else that they're talking to. And then don't automate this process. I need you to hear me. Don't automate this process because there's nothing worse than sending a check-in email right after you just talked to someone 2 or 3 days later or earlier at an event, right? You can templatize it. You can have email templates. You can use short codes to put them in, but I need you to manually hit the button to hit send because I don't want that awkward moment where they're like, Devin, we just talked yesterday. Now they're going, oh, this is inauthentic, right? This is not as real and value focused as I thought it was. So don't automate it. There's some tips there. If you want to ask questions about CRM, we can do that as well. The untapped potential in your network. So here's the quick action exercise for you, and then we'll be just about done. So pick a number of contacts in your current network, check in with them daily, right? That's going to be the check-in email that the template was already shared. I don't care if it's 1, 3, or 5. A lot of people tend to pick 3. It seems to be a good number. So 3 of those people, you're going to make sure they're in your CRM, make sure you're connected on the social platforms. That's a nice little bonus because as you're posting content there, you want to make sure you're connected. And then you're going to move them into your nurture cycle because they're not used to that. So you're going to send the check-in email. And if you want to book a meeting, you could move them into a follow-up sequence to book a meeting. Or what I recommend if you don't want to overwhelm yourself is you just send a check-in email, you assign it for 6 weeks out, you send a check-in email 6 weeks out. And what happens is we're starting to get our network groomed to this communication, and you'll start to see 10, 15, 20% will reply. As you get better at this, it's 30, 40, 50%. So don't hold yourself accountable to any of that. Hold yourself accountable to the activity, because that's what you can control. We can't control if they reply. We can't control the language we use and that we are following up and we are tracking it. Once you book the meeting, again, now we can reignite the process and inspire them to give us connections and referrals because we trained by doing. And then you're just going to continue it.